Donbass. We'll speak to the next. We'll listen to Mr. Anatolii Baronin, director of Da Vinci AG, and Andrii Kolpakov, managing partner of Da Vinci AG, who prepared a study, and they will present results here in our Ukraine Crisis Center. Good afternoon. We will speak about economics and about those consequences we have for economy of Ukraine, and negative consequences from and positive consequences which already exist for economy of Russian Federation. We also will cover the issue of what will happen and how the conflict in Donbass and escalation of the conflict will change economic situation picture in Russia and Ukraine. I will give you some numbers which will allow you to understand better the situation. The industrial production during the last months fell by 4.6%. The reduction happened in main sectors of our industry. First of all, in metallurgy, and the reduction is 9.3%, chemical industry 7%, machine building 17.3%. Let's look at Russia. Industrial production in the same 4 months went up by 1.7%. The growth of process industry is higher than mining industry. So the same with chemistry and metallurgy and machine building. The growth of metallurgy in May was 4.4%. To understand why these numbers are so different, we have to explain the situation in 2013. Metallurgy had the worst result since 2008, minus 2.1%. That was a reduction which hit Russian economy seriously, and because of negative situation on the market, low demand on internal market, and the Russian producers they were not able to compete on new levels with their competitors on the world markets. The revenues in last year from export of steel went down by 13.2%, alloyed metals 3.8% in the end of 2013, and it's come to summarize and to make assessment for the next year. No expert, Russian or international, could imagine that in 2014, in the first half of the year, Russian metallurgy would make such big breakthrough. And in the better case, they spoke about a small growth. And the main group of experts in Andrii, and they told that if metallurgy of Russia would have the same trend, would be the same like in 2013, that would be good. Nobody spoke about any growth. What was in Ukraine in 2013? Yes, we had a small reduction, but it because of negative dynamics of export of pipes. As to steel, the reduction of was 0.5%, and Russian 1.5%, so 3 times more. Ukrainian metallurgy are competitors of Russian metallurgy in 2 directions. And the first direction is the internal Russian market. Ukrainian metallurgy pushing their producers from the market on some items. And 87% of export of zinc steel, 70% of rolled steel and roads. That was Ukrainian export to Russia. And finally, as a result of 5 months, export of Ukrainian rolled steel well done by 3%, and producers are afraid that their market will be closed. The second direction where our producers compete with Russian competitors in the Middle East, markets in Asia. As a result of the last year, our products were more competitive. And we have the situation when Russian metallurgy is reducing, and it's pulling a big part of the economy of Russian Federation. At the same time, some internal movements are not done by Russian government. And they suggested to create a new tax conditions for metallurgy, for producers of metallurgy in Russia, for them to be able to modernize their production and to grow their products. But under conditions when Russia thinks about introduction of new taxes, and of course as such officer could not be supported by the government. They wanted to change their approach to tariffs for electricity, but at the moment, it's impossible to do in Russia.
There is one very simple thing to remove the competitor from both the domestic and foreign market, taking its share in the market. In the result of that, Russian metallurgical sector managed to increase the production of rolled metal by a lot, and by 12.5% they increased the production of black metal, and that led to loss of $400 million just in 5 months of 2014 in Ukraine. Russian companies managed to increase their sales by 20-40% depending on the group, and the price went up because the situation in Ukraine and the limits of limitation of Ukrainian supplies to Russian created the shortage in Russian market, and they increased prices, and because that is the construction season, that was in the interests of Russian producers. We believe that similar situation will continue in other sectors, because metallurgical sector is where Russia and Ukraine are mostly interrelated and they're competing. The same will be the situation in machine building industry in the second half of the year. This year, we see how the companies of machine building sector are destroyed, how the orders are blocked in the countries of the customs union. I can tell you Silur companies, Takhanov, Ferroalloys plant, Kramatorsk plant of heavy machine building, they were shot at, and we believe that the situation will worsen for the Ukrainian economy, and Russia will be getting new benefits which will help them take the economy out of the crisis which it was faced back in 2013. Today, Russian Federation, with the assistance of hybrid war, is addressing not so much its geopolitical tasks, but is trying to help its economy, removing strong competitor, destroying its industrial and export potential. In 2013, our company has done the detailed analysis of the perspectives of the development of Russian economy, and we forecasted that in the end of 2013 and 2014, the Russian economy may enter a very lengthy recession. So the fact of today's events in Donbass and their interrelation with the improving situation in some of the sectors of Russian economy really means that there is a certain interest among the leadership of Russian Federation in using the conflict in Donbass to restore its own economy. We believe that the attacks of terrorists could be directed against the companies which are competitors to Russians. The agro-industrial companies could be attacked as well. Agro-industrial producers in Donetsk and Lugansk Oblast today are talking about some facts of setting fire to the fields, and that is what is happening not just in Donetsk and Lugansk Oblast, but potentially may happen in Poltava and Donetsk region and Dnipropetrovsk region, despite the fact that the volumes of the fields and the significance of agricultural sector in Lugansk and Donetsk regions is not that big like in other regions of Ukraine, but nevertheless the destroying of agricultural products in these sectors could lead to worsening the general situation with the harvest and prices in Ukraine. Ukraine is the competitor to Russian Federation in the agricultural market as well. We also believe that the infrastructures of the regions will also be attacked to make production impossible. We believe that destroying the logistical and transportation infrastructure will strengthen while the troops of Russian Federation move inside the territory of Ukraine to kill the competitor in order to save the economy of Russian Federation is what's happening now. The Lugansk and Donetsk People's Republics are talking about nationalization of the companies which are in the regions, but the effects of destroying the systems of communication of electricity mean that de facto the bands are not planning to really form the economy of these pseudo republics. They are doing just what their curators are telling them. If we look at the activities of terrorists, and if we look at the world practice, we will see that all the terrorist organizations, which this way or that way were for getting independence in certain state formations, acted somewhat differently. If we look at the traditional Irish regulatory army that was fighting for independence of Northern Ireland, we can see that the objects of attacks were police departments, military bases, and the units of law enforcement bodies. But these attacks were never made on the infrastructure or industrial facilities. The actions of the bands destroying the objects of infrastructure scares away the potential investors from Donetsk and Lugansk regions. This way, reducing the investment flows, the Russian Federation puts the foundation for further social destabilization in the region, growth of poverty, and in the result, the decrease of the cost of the labor, which will have to look for the jobs in Russian Federation. The logic of these actions is that today, in some of the regions of Donetsk and Lugansk regions, the population is still supporting the governmental pro-Ukrainian forces. In case if Russian Federation succeeds in the stabilization of the economic situation in the region, and in autumn, by the beginning of winter 2014, they will have the economic crisis. And by that we mean the problems with electric and water supply, social payments, the support of the financial and banking sector, providing jobs for the population. Then pro-Russian bands will easier work in such conditions because they will have more support of the local population, and the attitude of the government of Ukraine will be getting more negative. So Russian Federation puts a foundation for further destabilization of the situation, the growth of the poverty, and the labor will have to look for jobs in Russian Federation. According to this scenario, the costs for payments for salaries will be decreased in the regions of Russia, and this will help to make Russian products manufactured in this region more competitive. I would like to emphasize that all the macroeconomic dynamics which we see both on the territory of Donetsk and Lugansk Oblast and on the territory of southern and western regions of Russian Federation and in key industries of Russian Federation, which are similar to the leading sectors of economy of Donetsk and Lugansk region. The leadership of Russian Federation uses this situation, developing the conflict and destabilizing the situation in order to improve the positions of their producers and to restore the economy of Russian Federation so that it does not get into recession, and that is done using the war in the east of Ukraine. Thank you. Questions? Yeah, yeah. We understand about the problems, but what are the ways of addressing these problems, of resolving these problems? The only solution to that problem is getting under control of Donetsk and Lugansk regions by Ukrainian forces. The losses incurred by Russia's sanctions, basically the war in Donbass is quite profitable for Russia, taking into account the sanctions applied against them. So in any case, Russia wins, yeah? So first of all, I would like to emphasize that back in March and April, we made publication in mass media of the U.S. on the prospects of introducing economic sanctions from European Union against Russian Federation. We made the conclusion then that the potential of Russian-European economic cooperation does not allow to go beyond the second phase of sanctions. All the talks about possibility of introducing third phase of sanctions is just a bluff, and I am sure that the leadership of Ukraine should understand that European Union, unlike the United States, will not strengthen the sanctions against Russian Federation, and this is because of this volume of trade turnover and mutual economic relations, cooperation relations, which exist between Russian Federation and European Union. Because of that, we cannot say that even the second stage of sanctions, which is in force against Russian Federation, causes some inconveniences to official Russia. Yes, there is certain irritation, there is a serious image losses, but talking about economic potential and economic dynamic, these sanctions have no significant result. So talking about the bonuses received by the economy of Russian Federation from the war in Donbass, it's not so much compensation measures in relation to sanctions which have been introduced against Russian Federation, but it's more about key bonuses that Russian Federation gets from the war in Donbass. Then a question from me. Russia today is recognized by the world as the aggressor. So what are the views of investor to Russian economy as the economy of the aggressor? What are the moods of the investor now, and what will they be if the situation escalates? Russian Federation creating geopolitical project on the basis of the countries of the former USSR creates its own domestic economy, and they hope that there will be the development of the internal market and the domestic investments. So the issue of Western investments is not that important for Russian Federation like it was 5 years ago. Investments to the economy of Russia in middle term will be decreased, but for the economy of Russia, which will be closing more and more and will be building the so-called economic iron curtain, they will not be so significant. So the next stage of sanctions will not influence. The third stage will not be introduced because of very deep cooperation between Russian Federation and European Union, and because of a very serious economic dependence of European Union, talking about the supplies of energy resources. If we are talking about investment pool, then the latest statements, the heads of all energy companies foreign energy companies which work on the territory of Russian Federation, and these are the companies from European Union and the United States. They unanimously mentioned that they are not planning to reduce the volumes of investments and leave the territory of Russian Federation. We are convinced that despite the geopolitical struggle taking place between the U.S. and Russian Federation, economic factor will be the main one, and we are sure that investments to Russian Federation, even though they will be decreasing, they will not be stopped, and Russian Federation unfortunately has some strength to withhold this political pressure from the U.S. And the last question: has your group calculated the alternative scenario? Ukraine signed the economic part of association agreement with the EU. If it is ratified, will it be able to correct the balance? I believe that Ukraine sooner or later will ratify this document despite all the political problems existing in our country. At the same time, taking into account the presence of pro-Russian lobby on the territory of European Union, taking into account this wide network of agents of Russian Federation which work in different civil society organizations, despite the presence of some influential persons who are the top managers and leaders of big companies, we doubt that the position of European Union on ratification. We believe that ratification, that the all 27 countries have to ratify. We doubt that this will be going on painlessly for Ukraine. Thank you for very clear, very profound analysis. Thank you.